Okay, good luck, Sophie.
Hi everyone, today I'll be talking about my Acting on the Climate Story project. My project is focused on the topics of plant intelligence and plant-human communication. Now, before I go on to share the details of my project and some of my findings, I want to first put out two questions. The first, are plants intelligent? And the second, is plant-human communication possible? Or is it just some sort of indigenous myth? For most or even all of you, the answers to both of these questions will probably be a no. My hope is that by the end of this presentation, those answers will become a yes. At the start of this project, I read a very intriguing article on the topic of plant response, recommended to me by Mr. Schmidt. The article was an interview with Cleve Baxter, a leading polygraph expert. So a polygraph is a machine used in lie detection tests. His work with plants started coincidentally with the Dracaena cane plant he had in his lab. At that time, he wasn't particularly interested in plants, but he was curious to see how long it would take the water given to the plant in the soil to reach the leaves. So he hooked the plant up with the galvanic skin response detector of the polygraph, and the galvanic skin response detector usually measures changes in perspiration. From there, he began to think about ways he could threaten the well-being of the plant. He first tried dipping one of its leaves into a cup of warm coffee, but the plant, from the line on the chart tending downward, seemed bored, if anything. But then, at 13 minutes 55 seconds chart time, the thought entered into his mind to burn the leaf. He didn't verbalize this idea, didn't touch the plant, and didn't touch the equipment. Yet the plant went wild. The pen went straight off the chart. The only thing the plant could have been reacting to was his mental image. Here's another experiment Baxter performed that revealed astounding insight. Basically, he arranged for brine shrimp to be dropped automatically and randomly into simmering water, and the reaction of the plants were recorded on a polygraph. To ensure that the plants were reacting to the death of the brine shrimp and not to his own emotions, he had someone else buy the plants and then store them in a different part of the building. On the day of the experiment, he brought the plants into the lab, hooked them up to the polygraph in a different room from the brine shrimp, and then left. Without any humans to attune to, we can be sure that the reactions in the plants shown by the up and down spikes in the polygraph must be a sign that the plants were reacting to the death of the brine shrimp. In a video talking about Baxter and his work with plants, the narrator says, Baxter hopes to show that plants react to any termination of life in their immediate environment. Another curious shift in perception happened to me when I listened to herbal practitioner Seja Poppin's book, Evolutionary Herbalism, Science, Spirituality, and Medicine from the Heart of Nature. Before I listened to his book, I never thought of plants as capable of sensory perception, as being able to see, hear, smell, taste, and feel. Because we associate sensory capacity with particular sensory organs, we don't think of plants as sensory beings. This, however, is not true. Plants may not have eyes, but if we define sight by the function of eyes, the perception of light, plants can definitely see. Their eyes are in the form of chloroplasts, attuned to light through photosynthetic activity. That's why houseplants always grow towards the windows to get the maximum amount of sunlight. Plants can also smell through a variety of receptors for volatile chemicals encountered inside their environment, and many plants release their own chemicals as a form of communication. And if taste is defined as the perception of food, flavor, and nutrients, then plants too have this capacity. Plants' roots can detect specific nutrients in the soil and determine the location of greater amounts of water, and then start to grow towards that direction. Plants can also feel. Roots growing through the soil can tell the difference between rocks and soil and will grow around the rocks. If we define hearing as a perception of vibrational wavelengths moving through space, then plants can definitely hear. That's why plants exposed to classical music tend to grow faster and produce better fruits. And finally, though plants don't have brains like ours, when we consider their millions of brilliant root tips which measure multiple factors in the substratum of Earth, such as gravity, temperature, moisture, light, pressure, electrical fields, mineral composition, chemical gradients, the presence of toxins, and vibrations, we see that they are literally functioning as a neural network and must liken them to a brain. If we define intelligence as only applying to humans and nature as everything excluding humans, then intelligence in nature is by definition impossible. But if you define intelligence as awareness, understanding, and the ability to manipulate one's environment to one's own advantage, then nature is, by definition, intelligent. Well, that was a lot of information about the intelligence of plants, and hopefully by now you're somewhat convinced that plants are indeed intelligent and maybe even sentient beings that need to be loved like anyone else. But now, let me go on to tell you more about my actual project and some of my findings on plant-human communication. I took a very specs-like approach to this project, meditating for 30 minutes every day, almost every day, with a plant. In total, I worked with 2 of my own houseplants and a tree growing on a small hiking trail near where I live. Like Sage Popham instructed, I first introduced myself to the plant like I would with any other person. Then I gave them an offering of friendship. From there on, I tried to just sit with them in silence and truly connect with them. Now, I was not transported to another world or anything and did not see a glowing image of a nature spirit, but I can't say that nothing happened because some things did. First of all, they told me their names. Again, I can't promise you that I didn't just make all this up in my mind, but I'm willing to believe that it was the plants who somehow sent me their names in the form of a thought. And also, these names aren't ones that I've ever heard of before previous to that thought, which makes me believe even more that there is more to this than just my imagination. The first plant I worked with was a Buddhist pine that I bought in 7th grade. She told me that her name was Marcella. Now, she isn't with us here today because she's really fragile and I didn't want one of her branches to break along the way, but I did bring in the second plant that I worked with. This plant is a snake plant, and I'm not sure when I bought it, but pretty sure it was later than Marcella, and as you can see, it's here today with us. The tree that I worked with, I actually knew previous to this meditation and had drawn an unfinished sketch of it. Sadly, I only got to meditate with her once, but still she told me her name, which was Lycophalia. Apart from this name revealing, I've also received multiple memories, random phrases/images, and songs that I'm pretty sure were inspired by the plants themselves. I'm not the best meditator, so I always have thoughts when I meditate. But I can usually tell if these thoughts were inspired by my last thought or something I did or thought about during the day, or if they were completely random, out of blue, and something that I had not thought about for a very long time. The latter kind, I think, might be because of the plants and are some sort of message to me from them. One time, Marcella sent me the word tiramisu and a past scene/memory of me and my mom eating afternoon tea at the Peak. In a later meditation, she sent me the song Scarborough Fair, which is a lovely song, but one that I had not thought about or sang in a very long time previous to that meditation. In my first meditation with Ivan Doa, it inspired me to sing the first part of Into the Unknown from Frozen 2, and towards the end of that meditation, it sent me some disturbing imagery, sort of horror, sort of alien, telling me that it was the kind of horror inflicted by humans on plants. Marcella inspired me to sing Gongxi Gongxi, a Chinese New Year song, and I think that she was congratulating me on recovering from being sick the past weekend because Gongxi means congratulations in Chinese. And when I asked Marcella to give me some emotional healing, she sent me 2 pleasant memories. One of me and a friend back in Beijing eating buffet together when I was visiting, and another of me doing a glass workshop on my birthday. And there is more than just what I told you, but the point here is that something definitely did happen in those meditations. You may be wondering at this point if there's any science behind this, and the answer actually is yes. All biological organisms give out electromagnetic signals, and within these signals are messages, used for communication inside the body and outside to the surrounding environment. The heart is the largest electromagnetic oscillator in the body, generating an electromagnetic field 5,000 times larger than that of the brain. As an electromagnetic oscillator, it's able to synchronize with other biological oscillators, such as plants. At the moment of synchronization, when we tune our being like a dial to match the electromagnetic frequency of a plant, a vast amount of information is exchanged in an unheard, feeling-based language. Through the heart, we perceive the unity of life and see nature as alive, intelligent, and communicating. The mind knows nothing of this and seeks to understand the whole by reducing it to its parts, which is paradoxical because the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Our ability to decipher electromagnetic information is dependent on our ability to be in a state of coherence, the ability of our cells to be attuned with one another and to be in a state of self-organization. In the modern day, most of us have lost this ability and have thus lost our connection to the natural world. It's not that plants are uncommunicative, but that we have forgotten how to listen. Now, I'm not claiming to be able to reach a state of heart coherence. That is a skill that takes years to cultivate. I'm also not claiming that I have learned the language of plants in just these few short weeks. What I am claiming, however, is that this language exists, and that just because it seems impossible to a linear analytical mind doesn't mean that it isn't true. Eisenstein states 5 different worldviews on the conventional spectrum of opinions on climate change.